Welcome back. As mentioned earlier, when I mentioned all those who unfortunately passed away during the week, I referred to the late Ronnie Raff, and I have today invited a very, very close friend of the late Ronnie Raff, and that is Hugh Raichlin. Afternoon, Hugh, and it's actually a privilege and a pleasure for you to please pay tribute to Ronnie Raff.
Thank you very much, Isaac. It truly is a privilege to be able to speak about my beloved friend who in many respects considered me to be his brother, and I certainly felt very much the same, that we had a brotherly love that stretched over a period of about 39 years. We met in 1979 when I came to the Keter Torah community that was led at that time by Rabbi David Lappin, and Ronnie was a person that I think everybody gravitated towards, and our friendship started immediately. And the qualities that I came to love about Ronnie, and it's even difficult to talk about the late Ronnie because it's just so hard to absorb the terrible loss that I personally feel, no question that his family feels, and in fact that the entire community feels. The qualities that connected me to Ronnie were the qualities that connected us for the next almost 4 decades. And that was that Ronnie was a person that truly was able to reach out to other people and accord every person tremendous respect in a way that can only engender a feeling of self-worth in the other person. It's quite fascinating that the parsha during Shiva for Ronnie was Parshat Naso from Bamidbar, Sefer Bamidbar. And Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the former chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, he asked the question as to why Hashem used the word Naso in counting. Because we see that the first pasuk of the parasha says, "Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, Naso et rosh b'nei Gershom, kam heim leveit avotam lemishpachotam." And you see here that there was a census being conducted. In this case, it happened to be from the tribe of Gershon, and the word Naso is used. And Rabbi Sachs elucidates that the word Naso actually means to lift. That for Jews, when one counts, it's not a matter of simply using a word like lispor, for example, to count a quantitative experience. Naso has the root of lifting, and it's lifting the head. And Rabbi Sachs develops in the shiur that he gave for that particular parsha an amazing concept, and that is that we are as important as we make other people feel. And that to me was something which was one of Ronnie's core values, and that is that every person that came across Ronnie or that Ronnie came across was important to him. I was privileged to be last night at the Hesped at Keter Torah for Ronnie, and I think it was his son Yoni that told us, in fact it was Yoni, that told us that when Ronnie was a young man, he was a very popular man. He was the head boy at Benoni High School, and he was loved by everybody. He was a true leader. And the leader that he was didn't come because he had a forceful personality that he forced upon others, or that he wanted to take that role of leading people. People gravitated towards him because he was a leader that everybody understood, cared about all of those that he was responsible for. And there's no question that that was why he was elevated to that position. But what Yoni shared with us last night was that there was a little boy that lived in Benoni, on the outskirts of Benoni, and he was a Down syndrome child. And without anybody knowing, Ronnie got on his bicycle on a regular basis and traveled 5 kilometers to go and spend a little bit of time with that Down syndrome child. And nobody knew about it until years later when the family told the Raff family what Ronnie had done. And that was so typical of Ronnie, that he would do it in a very quiet way. As Rabbi Rappaport said last night at the Hesped, a stiller way, a very modest and quiet way. He wasn't looking for glory, he wasn't looking for covet, for honor. He just wanted to pursue goodness for the sake of goodness because everybody was important. While we're talking about a Down syndrome child, there is a young man, or today's in fact not a young man. I remember when he was in our community, he was certainly a young man at that stage. Today he's a man of about 50, a man by the name of Giovanni, a Gentile Italian that lives right next door to Keter Torah Shul in Sydenham. When the family or when friends came to tell Giovanni that Ronnie had passed away, he broke down in tears. Why? Because Ronnie, on his way to or from shul, and Ronnie was always meticulous about being on time, even if he was perhaps running late for shul and Giovanni was outside, he would stop and he would talk to him like he had all the time in the world and made Giovanni feel special. And that's why we are so obligated to pay respect to Ronnie, because he is a person that is important because he made other people feel so important. The late Chofetz Chaim, Rav Yisrael Kagan, that lived in Lithuania, somebody was talking to him. They said that they were in America, and they said to the rabbi, to the Chofetz Chaim, that time is money. And the Chofetz Chaim turned around to him and he said, no, time is life. And when one looks at the life of the late Ronnie Raff, a man that passed away at the relatively young age of 63 years old, one can see in his life exactly what the Chofetz Chaim was talking about. Time is life. In the 63 years that he was with us, his contribution was enormous. He was, I believe, an exemplary student of Rabbi David Lappin, whom many of us have been privileged to learn under for many, many years. And Rabbi Lappin brought to our community the idea of a synthesis of depth in learning, a commitment to Torah learning, and at the same time to be a contributive and respected member of society. He emphasized to us those beautiful Lithuanian qualities that was particularly brought out by the Musa school in Lithuania of Rav Yisrael Salanta and all his followers. The idea of derech eretz. But derech eretz meaning a way of living in the world, of dealing with other people, which is exemplary. It was a reaction to those that thought simply by keeping the Torah and the mitzvot that one automatically becomes a mensch, a finer person. We saw that there was a school of thought that came through in Lithuania that said one has to emphasize and study derech eretz. What does it mean to relate to people with respect, to deal with all people honestly and with integrity, and to make people feel better about themselves, to raise their heads, as we saw from the Parsha of Nassau. And Ronnie was a man that would come to shul every morning, early in the morning, and he would go to Benoni and he would be sure to open up the doors of the business, the motor spare business, which was built up by the Raffs also over decades, that was started by Ronnie's late parents, Louis and Anne Raff. In fact, Louis Raff and my late father, Louis Raichlin of Asholem, were childhood friends, which means that our families are connected now to almost a century with 3 generations, and thank God to the 4th generation now. Ronnie would open the doors at 7:30 and he would work a full day. And as was said last night when we heard the other Hespedim about Ronnie, his head was in his learning. He had a Gemara on his desk. And his whole week was focused on a number of issues to do with his learning, but in particular he used to give a Monday night shiur. And he gave that shiur to a group of people for 25 years. And he was a member of Keter Torah for 40 years. We are talking about a man that held down a responsible position in business, that no doubt was a Kiddush Hashem. He was a person that created a respect for the Jewish religion by the way in which he treated people. So civilly, with a smile, with a joke. Ronnie had an incredible sense of humor. Who can not forget his beautiful jokes about Khatipi, the way he would talk about the Cape Coloureds and their wonderful view on life and their beautiful appreciation of the nuances of life. I remember acting with Ronnie in Purim plays and many, many other plays over the years. We would bring laughter and joy to people. That was Ronnie. Whenever you spoke to him, there was a clever, witty comment that he would make, because that's what he wanted. He wanted a person to walk away from him feeling so much better about themselves and their lives. And he would work a full day. He would treat people, as I said, with that honesty and respect. And at the same time, his head was in Torah. I also heard last night a beautiful concept that the Kotzker Rebbe said, that there is an example that one can draw from swimming, where the body is immersed in water, but the head is above. And so too, our bodies are immersed in the physical world of making a living, of getting through some very tough situations. But Ronnie's head was always above. Not only above in the sense that his head was in Torah thoughts and that he was thinking about his shiur and that he was connecting to God through his Torah and mitzvot, but I would like to suggest another angle. And that was, he was looking above the surface of the water, looking around him to see where he could do good and where he could contribute to other people's lives. They found 18 foolscap books of Ronnie's notes that he had written for the Monday night shiur, as I said, of 25 years of learning. And this shows a person who had contributed in such a real sense to the people around him that had come to him to learn, but it was more than that. It was literally everybody that came into contact with him. Ronnie, my brother, my friend, I will miss you dearly for many, many years to come. But I think that one of the lessons that we learn from Judaism is something which was typified by Ronnie's learning, and that was he learned for many years in his shiur about Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers. And I heard it once explained that when you hear, for example, in the Mishnah that it says, Shimon HaTzadik said, or Rabbi Yossi said, or whichever Rabbonim were being quoted in the Mishnah, those things are still said in their name today. They've never left us. Their learning, their imprint of the ethics of our fathers, of the way of life that a Jew strives to live for, all of those things are alive. And we say also from the Gemara that when a person repeats something in the name of someone else, it's as if their lips are moving in their grave. And I think that by all of us remembering the beautiful lessons of Ronnie about reaching out to other people, about living in a world where you sensitize and synthesize your Torah to Derech Eretz, being a mensch, where you show other people respect and lift other people's heads. If we live lives that carry through those values of Ronnie, Ronnie hasn't left us. And I know for sure that Ronnie has not left his wonderful wife Helen, with whom he was incredibly connected. They started dating one another when Ronnie was 18 and she was 16. An exemplary marriage, a marriage that was an example to all of us of love, devotion and total commitment. Yudi to Yoni, Dini, Tova and Minky, and a special mazel tov to Minky, who gave birth to a beautiful baby girl the day after the funeral of Ronnie. He will live on because he was an exemplary mensch that touched all of us, and I've no doubt that he will change our lives forever in the way that we do things in the world and the way that we look at the world. And that should be for him an eternal blessing. And he should be for his family a Meilitz Yosher, a Gute Better in Shemaim, that he should intercede on high for blessings for his family, for his friends, for his community, and all of Klal Yisrael.
Thank you, Hugh, for this magnificent, marvelous hesped. Of course, Ronnie was one of the pillars of our community. He will be sorely missed. I sat always behind him. I've been a member of Keter Torah also nearly 25 years. Never missed a morning, never missed the evening unless he was overseas. And he always used to take a break to go and learn overseas for a few months. I don't know if you remember that. So If you please, you can tell the family this is recorded, it's on YouTube and on Mixcloud, and if they want a copy of this, I'll certainly have one made for them. Thank you, Hugh. Go well, and thanks for your wonderful contribution.